For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jake Westerhoff. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at Canada Fibers, and I'm going to be acting as your MC at this morning's presentations. We've got a couple of speakers this morning and a nice ribbon cutting ceremony with a photo opportunity, so without further ado, we'll get started. And our first speaker this morning is Mr. Joe Miranda. Joe is the CEO and co-founder of Canada Fibers. Joe's been in the recycling industry for more than 30 years, and he certainly took a leadership role on the development of this complex here at 122 Arrow Road. But I think for everyone here at Canada Fibers, Joe's much more than a boss. Joe's an individual who, when you work for him, you are working with him. You know, he's a team builder, he's a coach, he's a motivator, and he provides direction and guidance on all aspects of our business. And I think most importantly, he is the vision and drive behind the success and growth of Canada Fibers. Joe's obviously played a key role in the development of this facility, and he has some thoughts and comments to share with you. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Joe Miranda.
Thanks for your kind words, Jake, but I'm only a garbage man. That's all I do. Welcome to all our municipal partners, City of Toronto, Region of Peel, City of Hamilton, Simcoe County, Region of Durham, Huron County, Guelph, Stewardship of Ontario, and all our private business partners. And a special welcome to the Honourable Ontario Minister of the Environment, Jim Bradley. Many years ago, we would have been considered as garbage pickers or scavengers. Now, we are sophisticated recyclers contributing to the green economy. Now that's what you call evolution. Welcome to the newly completed Canada Fibers Arrow Road multi-material recycling complex, the largest of its kind in North America. As our equipment suppliers Van Dyke and Bolograph repeatedly say, what a beautiful system. And our building contractors, Cornerstone Builders, say, what a beautiful building. At times, I thought they were just trying to justify the costs. But now, we conclude it was money well spent. We are now an urban mining company, recycling urban waste. Phase 1 of this 27-acre site opened in 2010 as a 110,000 ton per year single-stream mixed recyclable sorting facility. Processing on the industrial, commercial, institutional sector, difficult to recycle streams from the public spaces, and reprocessing of residue from conventional MRFs. With the completion of Phase 2's $40 million investment, this Arrow Road MRF complex is now the largest single-stream recycling site in North America, with a potential capacity in excess of 500,000 tons a year. Our goal is to stay at the forefront of environmental developments and technological advancements in the recycling industry. This one-of-a-kind facility is equipped with 10 opticals, back-breaking technology, paper magnet, vacuum systems, unique and innovative screen technology, a continuous loop feature to optimize and maximize recovery, and the list goes on. The building, thanks to Climatizer, has also been insulated with paper recovered by Canada Fibers. We are also anxiously waiting for approval to install solar panels for the creation of green hydro on this site. The technology and innovation invested in this facility allows us to sort 19 different recyclable products from residential, commercial, and institutional waste streams while accomplishing a potential 97% recovery rate. We can now offer a simplified service to declutter areas of our current and future customers used for source segregation and waste, while achieving a much higher diversion rate by reducing cross-contamination. As a result of reduction Truck flow will also be realized, improving our carbon footprint. We believe that confusing, complicated programs does not maximize diversion. Simple programs do. Currently, 75% of Ontario's waste goes to disposal sites in this province and abroad to the USA. There is a huge opportunity to recover valuable commodities from this stream that can be recycled into usable products. Recycling means less power, less water, less dependency on fossil fuels, and less greenhouse gas emissions. It means turning waste into a resource. But recycling is also a job creator, contributing to the green economy. For every 1,000 tons of material recycled, 7 new jobs are created. Recycling is where the environment and the economy intersect to the benefit of both. It's about finding value in the waste we wasted and buried. Diversion can dramatically increase with cooperation from governments, provincial and municipal, as well as the private sector. I would like to thank everyone for coming today. We are very excited and very optimistic about this expansion, which means for the environment, what it means for the economy, and what it says about changing attitudes, about how we view our resources and how we define waste. Thank you.
I think it was almost 2 years ago to the day that we started down this process to building this facility. And I think there's been a lot of thought and effort put in by a lot of different people during those 2 years. Preliminary design that gets turned into final designs that actually get turned into equipment and buildings and things. And it's a remarkable process, and it's not Disney magic. It takes a lot of hard work. This facility is typically referred to as a MRF, a material recycling facility, MRF. And there's probably a lot of mystery about what a MRF really is and does, and I think it can be summed up fairly simply. And this one is a very great example of it. Way down at the far end, we get a big pile of recyclables that are all mixed together. And at this end, they get turned into the products that you see on my left and right and over here on the far left. And it's that thing in the middle that separates it into the almost 20 different material types that Joe was talking about. And I know I'm speaking for Joe when I say that that works, but it's the people in these orange shirts that come every day and make it happen that really are a big part of this process. And I want to make sure they're recognized and thank them. So it is my sincere pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, the Honourable Jim Bradley. Jim's been sitting at Queen's Park for over 36 years, having been first elected in 1977, representing the riding of St. Catharines. And Jim has served in many different roles during that tenure. He's been interim leader of the Liberal Party. He's been interim leader of the opposition. He's held many different portfolios there, including community safety and correctional services, municipal affairs and housing, transportation, tourism, minister responsible for seniors, and twice as our Minister of the Environment. And during his first tenure as Environment Minister, the iconic Blue Box recycling program was expanded throughout Ontario. And I do recall 1989 being at the Queen's Park event where the 1 millionth Blue Box was delivered to, I believe, a family in Oakville. Mr. Bradley, we've come a long way from that particular moment. And under his current leadership at the MOE, Mr. Bradley has just proposed a new waste diversion legislation that's aimed at repairing some of the flaws in our current waste diversion framework and trying to increase waste diversion in the IC&I sector, which is currently stalled at 13%. So we're quite sure that this legislation will set Ontario back on the right path to drive diversion, create those jobs, and contribute to the green economy here in Ontario. So it is my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Honourable Jim Bradley.
Well, thank you very much, Jake, for that extremely kind introduction. When he suggested all the ministries that I've had, it somehow implies to the audience that I have a hard time holding a job down for any period of time, but the opposite is true. Having that experience in many ministries is certainly valuable, so I appreciate that kind of introduction very much. And I was thinking of Joe's speech. I could have just taken Joe's speech, made that speech, and I would have had a speech suited for any minister of the environment. So Joe, you had a lot of very good news, and that's the remarks that you provided to us today. I'm delighted to see so many people who are very interested in the field of recycling and waste diversion and reuse, and even the reduction of the amount of waste we produce in the first place. I'm glad to see those who are the frontline workers with us, the orange shirts. They were blue shirts at another event I was at earlier this week. They're orange shirts today. And we know that you are the individuals who actually make things tick, make things work within the building, as Jake has already made reference to. So I am delighted to be here in this kind of situation. And I see some of the workers who are up there as well. Joe is right. I used to think of it as garbage. And when I was on municipal council 1,000 years ago, I can remember that the landfill site was referred to by most people as the dump. The only people who referred to it as a sanitary landfill site were the city engineer and the Minister of the Environment, whoever that happened to be on that occasion. We have, as Joe said, come a long, long way since then, and I think the progress has been extremely positive because of forward-thinking people in the industry, in the private sector, and government, people working together at various levels of government as well. So I'm pleased to join you today for the opening of this new recycling facility. Obviously, it's quite an impressive place. And I looked at the brochure that was provided today to see some of the things that Joe made reference to, some of the components of this particular complex. But I see there are 10 optical sorters, 20 vacuum hoods to recover film plastic from the stream. There's a bag-breaking technology, unique and innovative disc screen technology, and a continuous loop feature to optimize and maximize the recovery of materials. And I want to go back to the time I was a rookie city councilor back in, I took office in 1970. And of course, the last city council left the decision on where the new landfill site was going. They just couldn't quite make that decision before they left office. But the city engineer of the day said he had a new innovation. They were going to shred some material or make more room in the landfill site. So if you think of that as a so-called innovation compared to what we see here today, there's a substantial difference. And I think this is quite an impressive place for the people of this area, people of the province of Ontario, and indeed Canada-wide, and I notice North America-wide as well. Because I understand, as Joe has said, this is the largest single-stream recycling facility in all of North America, with a capacity to process more than 60 tons of waste every hour. That is truly impressive. This facility means that every year, 350,000 tons of household waste from the Blue Box will be transformed into raw materials for factories instead of being buried in landfills. Blue Box processing builds on the success of the first phase of this facility, which handles waste from the industrial, commercial, and institutional sectors. And I'm glad, Joe, that that is another area of your interest and your involvement as well, because, well, we have done quite well in household waste and waste diversion. There's a major challenge there in the IC and I sector, and again, you are in the forefront of that. We're seeing much more happening in that field as well, and we want to see some significant improvement. If I were the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, or whatever the name that minister has today, or the Minister of Finance, I would be happy to say that this expansion means more than 100 new jobs being created. So here we have a win for the environment, which I'm exceedingly interested in, and for the economy as well. Recycling is a job spinner as well as an environmental saver. And I want to congratulate Canada Fibers for its environmental leadership, yes, it is leadership, and commitment to continuously improving your processes to recycle even more waste. It's an excellent example of the positive impact recycling has on the health of our environment by keeping waste from littering our land and following our lakes and streams. The Ontario Waste Management Association tells us that the sector creates more than, and this is a B, by the way, not an M, the sector creates more than $3 billion in revenue and invests $300 million in infrastructure annually in Ontario. Again, a very impressive statistic. A separate study found, and Joe made some reference to this, that for every 1,000 tons of waste we recycle, 7 jobs are created. Recycling generates 10 times the jobs that disposal in a landfill does. But there's still much more room to grow, and I think everybody in this room recognizes that and wants to strive toward that growth. Overall, Ontario is still sending too much of the used materials and the opportunities they represent to landfill. With better tools, we can recycle much more waste into worth, as happens here. With more recycling, we can keep our environment clean and recycling facilities like this one literally humming. That is why I introduced the proposed Waste Reduction Act earlier this month. If passed, the act would make individual producers responsible for recycling the goods they sell in Ontario. The proposed Waste Reduction Act would boost recycling rates and establish a system that encourages the private sector to invest more in recycling plants and jobs in this province, just as Canada Fibers Limited has done in its facility. The Act recognizes the great economic potential of recycling so-called waste back into the economy as new materials. We have a great opportunity to increase recycling and build our economy. At this point, I want to thank people in this room and some who aren't with us at the present time for your input into the legislation. When we started out to look at a potential change to what was called the Waste Diversion Act, and now the new version will be the Waste Reduction Act, we didn't simply pull something off the shelf or ask ourselves what would be needed as components of this act. We actually went out and talked. I talked personally to some of you who are here today and to many others who have an interest in this particular field. The input I had was extremely valuable. The components of the legislation reflect the input that we had from a variety of sources, from a variety of organizations, from a variety of people in both the public and private sector. And you have no idea probably of how important that is. And that is why I was delighted when I made the announcement of the legislation about to be introduced in the House, that there were many people there that day from various sectors who were endorsing that bill. And the reason they could is they could see inside that legislation their particular input. So once again, I always believe that governments benefit immensely from a widespread consultation before moving in one direction or another. And so I think we have legislation that, I can't be presumptuous, but in my opinion, probably, perhaps I'm an optimist, but probably will receive support from all 3 of the parties in the Ontario legislature. There may be some modifications, I suggest, but I think again, because of that input and the particular construction of that legislation, that we will see positive results forthcoming. So I want to wish you continued success, and I look forward to working together to build a cleaner, healthier environment, and at the same time, a strong economy. Thank you very much.